Reviewing a main series Pokemon game is something I've been both dreading and looking forward to having to do. I should go on record saying that I'm still technically a fan of the series, having kept the ship afloat financially since 2003 in spite of my best interests. Why I've continued to do this is a different question, one that I'm still not sure I know the answer to. Sentimentality aside, the prospect of reviewing a new Pokemon game after having played nearly all of them so far is an interesting one, in that the bulk of the critique will be directed towards the petty little things that a more professional reviewer wouldn't give two shits about, because in all honesty, what the fuck else is there to talk about at this point? When you've been doing this as long as I have, you start to notice that the quality of a Pokemon game is leveraged entirely on whatever features the game could possibly boast as new, since the core gameplay has been boiled down for so long that it's basically just steam at this point, wafting colorless and odorless throughout the establishment to the point where it's probably best to just ignore it entirely. With that being said, here are the advancements. Character customization can actually call itself character customization this time without having to lie through its fucking teeth. However, no matter what style you choose, you'll still end up looking like someone set fire to the dumpster behind a Vans outlet store. Other key features include a mini-map. You know, that thing that's been a staple of RPG design since like 1996. Not sure why, considering that this is by far the most linear game in the whole series. And a sassy robot sidekick who addresses you alternately like an autistic preschooler and someone they just got finished hate fucking, whose only purpose is to say monumentally stupid shit at the most inopportune of times. The writing as a whole is kind of an odd dilemma, and then it seems the game had like 6 lead writers, and 5 of them were convinced that these games were being marketed exclusively to children under the age of 10, while that one other guy was way too good of a writer to just be working on Pokemon. There were an unexpected number of genuinely clever moments, which were almost always ruined by Mudflap chiming in to say something retarded. Overall, the story was no less juvenile and predictable than it usually is, but it was still slightly above average, which doesn't say much, but it was still somewhat nice. What's significantly less nice are the rest of the shitty gimmicks the game tries to sell as features. You see, instead of gyms, there are now island trials, which are just gyms, and instead of HMs, you have to call Uber every time the game decides to randomly put a heavy object in your way, which wastes just about as much time in the grand scheme of things. Speaking of time wasting, if at any point you get tired of that whole playing the game bullshit, the levels are designed to where nearly all trainers and random encounters can be completely avoided, and now with Z moves, once per battle, you can just fucking insta-kill your opponent at no cost whatsoever. I'm not a game developer, but I'm pretty sure giving players the ability to avoid playing your game is not exactly a point in its favor. Lastly, some thick-headed dipshit on the dev team thought it would be smart to give Pokemon in random encounters the ability to continuously respawn, as if that's somehow not a terrible fucking idea. Hey guys, he would say, sticking dry erase markers up his nose, let's give the most tedious part of our game the possibility to loop indefinitely. Someone needs to serve the idiot responsible for that asinine bullshit a knuckle sandwich with a side of fuck you fries. The entire company is to blame for not firing him on the spot. So there, all the significant changes either did nothing or made things objectively worse. The most I can compliment is that the difficulty curve actually promotes an extent of challenge without necessitating an obnoxious amount of grinding this time, and the Pokemon themselves, with some notable exceptions of course, are pretty good design-wise. I might be sounding a bit hypocritical given that I gave Dishonored 2 flack just last week for basically pulling the same shit. The reason being that Dishonored 2 was following up a game that was significantly better than average and therefore had expectations to live up to. Pokemon games, on the other hand, have always been a mixed bag in terms of quality, and even the ones I call my favorites I wouldn't consider particularly noteworthy. You see, Pokemon is not going to go down in history as a pantheon of quality gaming, or at least it shouldn't. Pokemon will be remembered as the series that got children into gaming so that they could grow up and graduate to better games, or worse depending on who you ask, but that's not the point. What this means is that Game Freak can consistently churn out the same game but with new characters for the rest of their professional existence, and there's nothing anyone can do about it. Which sucks because the current model of successful franchise development are the people who can Control-C, Control-V their way through life and still manage to release consistently unfinished products with little to no consequence. It also sucks for morons like me who, despite everything I just said, have still managed to enjoy this series long enough to feel obligated to shell out $40 every time a new installment comes out, because a sizable portion of the consumer base has had to age alongside a series that refuses to age with them. And all the selfie sticks, veiled sexual jokes, and pandering subcultural slang in the world isn't gonna change that. So pardon me for feeling that it's entirely within my rights to criticize a series that's existed longer than I have for not growing the fuck up.